Hi, Andrea. So I'm sitting here with your session plan and great level of detail. Really, really strong problem statement, strong session overall. So because you gave me so much detail, I can in turn give you detailed feedback. So let me start at the beginning. As I said, how might Challenger better communicate policies, procedures, and updates to staff? That's great. It's really straightforward and easy and specific and easy for people to get their heads around. So good starting problem statement. Um, I think so. I'm gonna just go item by item through your session plan. I think your first day one 15 minutes introduction and housekeeping, I think it's too ambitious for 15 minutes. Because okay, so review the agenda, fine. Collect ethical reviews, fine. Overview of CPS, that will take time. It will 10 minutes, I mean, even if you do it in 5 minutes, it will take time. But then the foresight preferences. So you think you put up the slides, and then people will identify, and then you might want to spend a minute or two talking about the implications, or letting them, if people once people do that, they might want to speak like, oh, I do find myself getting annoyed when people don't want to just get on with things and solve the problem, or whatever it is. People often want to make a couple of comments after something like that. So I don't think 15 minutes is grossly under time, but I think there might be another 5 minutes on there, and it could go to 10. And this really depends on how strict you want to be and what you're prioritizing. So, there are sometimes advantages to keeping things moving forward at a very quick pace, even if people feel cut off. And sometimes there are disadvantages. So that will be up to you to use your judgment. I thought you did a great job in putting specific questions around the five W's and H. Those questions can mean almost anything, right? And then you chose very specific four questions. So again, not too much, which was great. Um, I was wondering with how do others handle it, whether people will have the information, or whether that's something that will require them to think, that will then require longer than the 10 minutes you've allocated. In terms of who is involved, you might want to push them around who else, to go, the whole point being maybe to go beyond just how they originally thought about it. So, what is the history? This is all great. Again, 10 minutes, you know what, and it really depends on your group and how much they have to say. So I'm not sure if this will be easy to do in 10 minutes or whether you'll be rushing it. So, but when I look at the introduction and the assessment, you might, yeah, your timelines are tight. Excellent. Wouldn't it be awful if excellent job that you that you have some examples going in to help people out around what they're thinking. And good that you're asking for a few outrageous ideas. That said, and I noticed this later on too, if you're asking for outrageous ideas, you want to always make sure that you are following up on them, because the default thing that happens is that the outrageous ideas get left on the whiteboard, because when we then move on to hits, it's not clear how they can be useful. So the goal of generating outrageous ideas is always, because those can be jumping off points for new ideas, or those can be reined in. Like Kelly said in the IDEO video, if you don't start with crazy ideas, you don't have anything to rein in. It doesn't work the opposite way. But if you don't have any kind of reining in process, then people can feel that they're generating crazy ideas for nothing, right? So it doesn't have to be complex in terms of how you do that. And you can look at, I posted to Mike in your class a little blurb from another book around reining in crazy ideas. But you do want to think about that if you're going to ask for that, what are you going to do with it? Um, I had the same question as Simona, because if you're then asking people to go into the hits and identify what vision they are most drawn to, if you don't reverse the wouldn't it be awfuls, then you have all these wouldn't it be awfuls. And so that would be an additional step, an additional time to then say, okay, we have these wouldn't it be awfuls, let's reverse them. Then you have a bunch of vision statements. Then you can go and start converging around which ones you want. In terms of timing, I was just wondering, I'm curious about how precise you want to be in how you in converging onto the BHAG. So you have all these visions of the future where your problem is solved, and where, for example, um, staff instantly know when a policy changes. There's never any holdups because of staff. Do you need to get to a point where you have a BHAG where you're saying something like a precise articulation of the state you want to get to, which the advantage of doing that is a level of precision. The disadvantage is the time it often takes to actually get to something good there, right? Or alternatively, would it be enough to identify some key points in a vision, or sort of a loose statement of where you want to go? Um, would it be okay to converge to the point where you're just saying, so here are three things we definitely know that in 5 years we want to see in our future, without coming to a BHAG? This is a judgment call, up to you. And again, same question about the success zones. This really depends on the level of specificity you want to get to here, and where you want to allocate your time. So is it enough to have sort of a vision of where you want to go without making it too defined? Or do you want to go that extra step through going through success zones and defining a BHAG, both which will take time, right? Um, Love that you put the blank template for web. That will be great. So the web. When you move up the web, why do we want to solve this problem? It's possible, think through before you go in what people might say, because it's possible that they will say things that are similar to what they've already said envisioning, because you're getting more abstract now. So for example, why do we want to better communicate policies and procedures? Because um, we don't want staff to be frustrated. It might be that envisioning, we don't want staff to be frustrated, like no frustration will have already come out. If in running through this in your head, you think that there will be overlap, then you could just go straight to down the web, because in going up the web, you're making the problem more abstract, and you've already been spending some time in sort of abstraction in looking at the vision. And if you kind of, from your judgment, your knowledge of your audience, if you think it's time to, at this point, get more concrete, you might want to just move down. So what's stopping this from happening? And this is the part that people are very good at identifying, because it's saying the problems. Like, what are all the problems? What are all the reasons that clear communication is not happening, right? And I think you should have more than three boxes there. I think it should be I think you could think of 10 reasons. I don't, you use your judgment, but I think three is too little in terms of what's stopping this from happening. So just to summarize what I just said, I think it's your choice if you want to use go up the web and down the web, but you might want to consider only going down if as when you run through it in your head, it's too much abstraction until this point in the session. Let me know if that doesn't make sense. All right, so great. So then you come out of your session and you have a vision and you have a problem statement, and you have a better understanding of what's going on. So as always, any session where you're going in and only clarifying, you want to be very, very clear to people up front around framing the expectation, so they don't think you're going to solve the problem that day and then feel disappointed. Instead, they know that the goal here is to clarify. So very clean session, really strong. Next session. So first of all, I would, after this session, you will probably go in and tweak your next section, because you'll understand your audience and your context more. So great. You come in with, here's what we did last time. Here it is in final form, and perfect. Now, in terms of diverging, the brainstorming. So I love that you're doing the staged brainstorming, and that you're giving people to get progressively more taking on more risk in terms of brainstorming. Participants will be able to. I didn't understand when you said exploring ideas, brainstorming, how this would be in a web. It will be centered at the center of a web. Um, I guess you're doing a mind map with this. So I could see that working. I just wasn't sure what it meant. Um, Again, if you're going to do outrageous ideas, you want to do something with them. Same principle as what I talked about before. And same thing with forced connections. So forced connections is going to lead you to some strange places. It could, right? And so then what do you do with those stranger ideas? So if you're going to get people to sort of go further outside in terms of divergence, you want to also be helping them take those ideas and mold them and shape them. So in other words, you need something before you just choose the ideas if you're actually stimulating crazier ideas. Um, and then you kind of choose the best ideas, and looks good. All right, so I gave you a lot of detail because you gave me a lot of detail, but don't take my extensive feedback as a sign that you are not on the right track. You are. It looks really good, and let me know if you have any more questions. All right.